Who are the teams that missed the postseason last year that have the highest chance of making it next season? Because even if you feel really comfortable and confident about the 16 teams that made it last season, we never see a repeat. Just last season, we saw 4 new playoff teams, and new playoff teams are just teams that missed it the previous season and are back on track. So for example, the Grizzlies missed it the year before and made it this season. Same thing with the Warriors. And then we had the new Houston Rockets core and then the Detroit Pistons core. That's 4 new playoff teams. Year before that, we had 5 new teams. Year before that, we had 5 new teams. Year before that, we had 5 new teams. You get what I'm saying? Ain't done. The year before that, we had 6 new teams. There's only 16 spots because I'm not even talking about playing. I'm talking about being in a 7-game series. And year before that, when we got to the bubble, there was only 3. But we see this time and time again. There are going to be new teams to jump onto the scene. And personally, I'll be trying to predict those teams. Last year, I fumbled it completely. I did not see the Detroit Pistons having the season that they did, but they did it. You know what I'm saying? This video is brought to you by SeatGeek. Hit the link in the description. Use code KFR10 for 10% off your purchase of tickets. I, of course, mostly use it for sporting events, but they got way more like comedy, like concerts, like festivals, like Broadway. If you need tickets, you gotta check SeatGeek first. I want to show you how simple it is. Let's say I want to see this Pirates versus Chicago Cubs game. I'll click the thing that I want to see, pick how many tickets I want. In this case, I'm gonna take 2, and you're gonna see the venue. If you zoom in, you'll see a bunch of dots. The greener the dot, the better the deal. I want to go bird's eye view and sort by deal score, and these are the best seats in the house for the best price. 10 out of 10, amazing. Level 327, right? And that's what you would see on the field, which is not too bad for just $80. All I would need to do is a couple more clicks and I would have got my tickets. And you got to use the code KFR10 for 10% off. It could be the first time you use SeatGeek or the millionth time. That code should work. Thank you so much to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. So in order to talk about the potential, 4 to 5 teams are going to surprise us, we got to look at who didn't make it. In the Eastern Conference, this feels like the safest place to be when it comes to new playoff teams, right? We already made a video about like the Indiana Pacers and the Boston Celtics, who, knock on wood, are like one more injury away from completely missing the postseason. But both of those teams, even with the no Tatum and no Halliburton, have the talent, especially in the Eastern Conference, to still be a playoff team. They're just not contenders anymore. But we can't predict injuries. We can't control injuries. And objectively, injuries are going to matter when it comes to new teams jumping onto the scene. So those are maybe the candidates you could potentially see falling out of things. One team I feel like most people are really comfortable and confident will be like, oh, 100% that team is a playoff team next season, is the Atlanta Hawks. The Atlanta Hawks, of course, had a really great offseason, all things considered, bringing in Kristaps Porzingis, bringing in Kennard and Nikhil Alexander-Walker, and hopefully having a healthy Jalen Johnson season. It is very easy to predict that that team is going to be a postseason team next season. So that would be the one. I'm like, right now it's August. We don't know what's going to happen once the season starts. But that team, I'm like super comfortable and confident with saying they will be a playoff team next year. Then after that, we got the Bulls. I feel like the Bulls could be a play-in team next season, which is usually their goal, but I don't see them winning 2 play-in games to get there. It would have to take like a really big jump from one of the young guys, and I really don't see that for them to be a playoff team. We got the Toronto Raptors, who are one of the, I don't know, I've said it before, most confusing teams, because obviously on paper they have a extreme amount of talent, right? They have Scotty Barnes, who's a former All-Star. Brandon Ingram is a former All-Star. Emmanuel Quickley wasn't healthy last season. RJ Barrett, at least in the first half of the season, was showing us some playmaking things. And then Jakob Poeltl is a super solid center. And then their bench mob has a bunch of young guys, yeah, but like I like a lot of those young guys. Ochai Agbaji's a real NBA player, you know? Even with saying that, I just struggle to figure out if their pieces will fit, right? The three-point shot, as you know, is extremely important in the game of basketball in 2025, and they just don't have a ton of that. Now, if you're going to play devil's advocate, you could say, hey, man, Brandon Ingram just last season, even though, of course, he didn't play a ton of games, he averaged the most catch-and-shoot three-pointers of his career, and he shot 40% on those. That's great, but that's not really his game. You know what I mean? Like, he is a guy that you want handling the ball and creative for himself because he's a dog at that. But also Scotty Barnes is a 29% three-point shooter. So it's just, I think that they need to be really creative offensively. Like, I feel like defensively they should be decent to good, but they have to be really creative offensively given the talent that they have on their team. And I can't I can't say confidently that they're going to be a playoff team, but I could see it happening, I guess. The Brooklyn Nets are out. I don't see that happening at all. The 76ers, obviously an amazing candidate here. You know, a semi-healthy season from Joel Embiid would be enough to just make the postseason, right? Semi-healthy. I ain't even talking about 65 games. Paul George will be back in theory, and we don't know if he's a 16 point per game score or 20. Was last year a fluke? Who knows? But even if it was not a fluke, he's still an okay to decent NBA player, right? And then you got Maxey and so on. So I could see them being, of course, that team to do it. And they have no incentive to like tear it all down like they did last season, right? Where they phoned it in order to retain their own first round pick. From my understanding, they don't hold the rights to anything in their 2026 draft. So it's not like last year was like bench everybody, let I don't even know who was super for them last season. Let so-and-so hoop so we can get our pick. They got their pick. That's VJ. But next year, I don't think they have any ties to their own first-round pick. So going out there and win should be their priority. The Charlotte Hornets, I don't think it's there just yet, even if I like the small moves they had. And it looks like a cohesive NBA team outside of them having like, I really like Moussa Diabate, but I don't know if he's a starting center just yet. So the center core is pretty lackluster, and the Wizards are just too far away as well. So in the Eastern Conference, the real candidates will be Atlanta, the 76ers, and maybe the Toronto Raptors. Now, you're asking me, Kenny, yeah, those will be the teams potentially to jump in, but who's falling out? I'm not playing that game, damn it. Because part of that is wishing an injury, and I'm not doing it. Let's look at the Western Conference. Things are really tough here, man. And I'm looking at last season. We had 3 new Western Conference postseason teams. Of course, that was the Rockets, that was the Warriors, and the Grizzlies. Both of those teams were back in the playoffs for the first time in a year or so. But it's really hard to make the postseason in the Western Conference, man. If there's anybody from this playing team, you could maybe convince yourself that the Dallas Mavericks will be a really good team next season. I don't know if I'm there to say really good, but a playoff berth wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. I do believe that next season they're going to, at the bare minimum, be a really good defensive team. The offense, I'm really struggling to figure out exactly what the identity is going to be. They don't really have a lot of guys that put pressure on the rim. They don't really have a lot of facilitators or just guys that'll open the game up for Anthony Davis or so on. A lot of this also boils down to how good Cooper Flag will be in his rookie season. I don't know just yet. I'm a believer, but again, the NBA is a different monster. If he came out and struggled, I'm not going to be panicking or anything, but you know, that's kind of what being a rookie is, especially if we're considering that Kyrie Irving may not be able to play at all next season. So could it be a playoff team? For sure, but there are a lot of different variables, right? The Suns, I just don't see it. It's not really a well-constructed roster for the season. The Trailblazers were hot at the end of last season, like the last month or so. Defense was real good. Denny had turned into, a guy that was putting up all-star level numbers for the last couple months of the season. They made a few trades. They brought in Drew Holiday to be a veteran and to be a defensive monster, even if his offense has wavered over the last season or so. If the Trailblazers were in a postseason series, a 7 seed or an 8 seed next season, I wouldn't be that surprised, Like, they got a lot of things on that roster that I really do like. There's a lot of variables, just like all of these teams. I mean, if you miss it last season, there's obviously going to be variables for your next season. But, like, what was Scoot Henderson turn into? Will Shaedon Sharpe be healthy, and how much does his game evolve? Is Donovan Clingan going to be ready to play 25 to 30 minutes a game? Like, there's just a ton of variables, but I do like what they got. The San Antonio Spurs will probably be the pick that a lot of people have for the Western Conference. Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox only played a handful of games together last season. I think it was like 5 or 6 games. And I didn't even look at the number. Let me see if I can look at the numbers. Even though, again, such a small sample size, I'm curious if it was really good, I'm going to use it as like, oh yeah, they were great together. But if it was really bad, I'm going to say small sample size. So let's figure it out. And a negative net rating. It was a negative 1.95. So small sample size, only 120 minutes. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But objectively, they're a better team this season, right? One thing that happened a ton with the San Antonio Spurs is that soon as Victor Wembanyama went to the bench, all hell broke loose, and they didn't know how to maintain the defense or maintain any flow offensively. Now they added a few bench pieces for a backup for Victor Wembanyama. It's like, okay, obviously he ain't Wemby, but Luke Kornet is a real ball player. Maybe the idea of Kelly Olynyk is better than the real Kelly Olynyk, but that's a real ball player. Like those are guys that you can rely on to give you, 10 to 15 minutes per game. That's a win because last year they didn't really have a lot of that. But it still is a young team, right? They're going to be relying heavily on Rookie of the Year, Stephon Castle. What does his game look like in year number 2? What does Ron Harper look like in his first season as an NBA player? We don't know, and there's a lot on their plate. But when you have a guy that could be like, we can look into next season, like that guy is a top 10 player on opening night. And he's done nothing but get better throughout the year and a half, 2 years of his career. Maybe by the end of next season, he's widely considered top 5. Like, that's enough for me to be on the bandwagon and say that they could be a postseason team next season. Even if, there are some players on the team, I question how they fit alongside them. The Pelicans would really surprise me. I really love watching Zion play. He's one of my favorite views in all of basketball. Herb Jones, one of my guys as well. But I just don't look at that roster and think playoffs, man, not in the Western Conference. I mean, it would be amazing if they did, but it's hard to get there. And the Jazz are jazzing around. They're not ready at all. I think the 3 teams out west with the highest odds, and I'm sorry, Kings, I looked over you. At this point in time, man, I don't know what, I've said it before, but I don't know what the hell is going on in Sacramento. So it's hard to even talk about them as a roster, as we don't even know what the hell they're going to look like, if they will be making another trade. Will Russell Westbrook end up on the team? I don't really know. But the 3 teams we look at is maybe new playoff teams will be the Dallas Mavericks, the Portland Trailblazers, and the San Antonio Spurs. This offseason definitely was different than like any other offseason in recent history, where there wasn't a ton of movement going on. So maybe that lack of movement prevents us from having 5 to 6 new playoff teams. Maybe this year's the outlier where we only get 1 or 2. I'm not completely sure, but I'm excited, man. This is why we love sports. You never really know what's going to go on.